Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Strong as You Think. Today, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind, and it's when we've recognized that something has caused us pain in the past, right? And we've talked about it, but we're still feeling the pain. We probably received some sort of relief when we recognized it at first and when we talked about it, but the relief wasn't lasting, and that we're feeling the pain of it again and wondering why that didn't work, or if there's more that happened that we don't know or don't understand. And while it could be those things, what I want to offer is that most likely we haven't finished the process of dealing with that. Just talking about it may not be enough. It could be, but in many cases, it's not enough, because what happens is when we have something difficult happen to us is when we have a stress response in our bodies, we need to find a way to process it and let go of it. And for example, animals in the wild, when they have a near-death experience, like they're almost caught by a predator, but then they get away, they've shown how these animals stop and they shake and sometimes almost fall down. And that's them processing the stress hormones. It's like finishing that experience, because those stress hormones came up, they were running for their life or whatever it is that happened. Their body was in fight and flight. And so they needed to have a finish to that. So when something happens to us, we need to have some sort of finish too. Like our bodies go into that stress response too, even if it's not, we're physically running. But if our bodies are scared, then, or just highly stressed, we have this response in our bodies, but we don't have a finish to it like that. Like these animals, they finish that by having that shaking, or what, or almost falling down, or whatever it is, to kind of move that the rest of the way through their body. And so their body has a finish point and knows it doesn't need to continue all those stress hormones again. But what happens with us as humans, we have these experiences that stress us, maybe even traumatize us, that we don't have an endpoint to. Our bodies don't finish that. So they're continually on this stress loop. And when we haven't finished that, we still feel that pain. And in addition to that, not having finished the stress response is when, especially when we've had someone hurt us who was supposed to love us, who we feel has hurt us, that tends to generate feeling. From that experience, we often understandably create a meaning of, I'm not worthy of love, I'm not enough. And having learned those beliefs through that experience, those beliefs are continually there in our mind. And those are what's actually continuing to hurt us. So even if we talk about painful experiences in our past and we aren't doing what we need to do to physically get that stress cycle out of our body, and we are still having those beliefs, then it's natural that we're still feeling pain. And so I want to tell you that to give you hope in that, because I think some of us feel like I've done what I need to do. I thought I understood what was bothering me, but I'm still hurting. But that there is still things that we can do to work with that. You don't have to stay in that same pain, but we just didn't know that you need to, go through that physical experience in your body of letting those emotions go, of finishing that stress process. And sometimes that can work as simply as when you are triggered again by something else and you feel that, to take the time and instead of shoving it down, because that's probably what's been going on sometimes for years, is shoving it down, is to allow it. Sometimes that's crying. Sometimes you're going to feel a shaking. And sometimes it's even like an anger shaking. And it's not always going out and it's not yelling at somebody. It's not hurting them, but it's letting your body shake. It's letting you feel those things through your body, letting yourself cry for a minute without trying to stop. And sometimes in the moment, it's not the appropriate time, but you can revisit it later. Sometimes you can bring back that experience later by thinking about it and almost causing a trigger again, just to allow that to happen. But you want to do that in a safe environment. Sometimes I recommend doing that with a professional who's trained in trauma management, but some people have a lot of success in doing that with a loved one. It needs to be a trusted loved one, but to be able to allow that finished process of the stress or trauma response through your body will allow a lot of relief. And then you also want to double check in and see what beliefs that you may have accumulated with these past experiences. And are you having beliefs about who you are and about your worthiness, about your enoughness, about if you're bad? Because as those continue to perpetuate, those cause you pain. And so they're not always changed overnight, but when you can realize that, of course, I'm feeling not enough when this person who was supposed to love me, perhaps a parent, perhaps, a trusted teacher, or whoever it was, did something to hurt you. It's give yourself the permission to believe, yes, that did make me feel like I wasn't enough. But does that have to mean that now? And that's where we can rewrite our story. And it's not rewrite our story in that never happened. We pretend it didn't happen, because that won't work, because we know it happened. But rewriting it in the sense that it means more about that person than it does about me. That what they did was because of them. It wasn't because of me. And when you can rewrite it in that way and retell it with the events and circumstances don't change, because we can't change the past, but we can change what it means to us, what it means about us. And as we rewrite that, that starts to take away some of the pain. So I wanted to offer you that just because you've acknowledged and talked about the story doesn't mean that you're done. It could be some people, after they recognize and tell their story, their body naturally finishes that stress response. They cry, they shake, and they're able to have that just after maybe telling that story once. It can happen. And that's why sometimes the talk therapy is great and it's enough. But for many of us, it doesn't completely finish that experience for us. And so we want to figure out how to finish that stress response, and also to just rewrite what it means about us. Because what other people do to us is not us. But especially if it happened to us young, it's very easy for those beliefs to have come in there, and they start to affect other things that are going on. But as we recognize where those beliefs came from and challenge them and rewrite that story, that's where we start to find more relief. And that's where we can start to catch it and ask ourselves, is that what we want to continue believing? Does that have to be true? And there are lots of routes to go for finishing that stress response. There's some restorative yoga that helps. There's different kinds of massage that help to finish that process. There's a therapy called EMDR. Just other things that help you bodily, physically finish that response. And sometimes you can just do that on your own, like I talked about with having that trigger come up and just allowing it. But if you need some help, there are things available to you. I've also heard of acupuncture being helpful with that. So be open to your options. And some therapists do these, and some therapists and coaches can just be there for you as a witness, as you a safe place and a witness as you go through that process physically, and as you start to revisit those beliefs. And this is something that I can work with you on. But you may want to have other methods and modalities to help too. And I've had clients that have found success in working with me and with a therapist and with a massage therapist, or they also do yoga. And you're going to want to experiment to see what works the best for you. But just to offer you some hope that nothing's wrong with you if you've been talking about it and you've acknowledged it, but you're still feeling the pain. There's still things that we can do to help you move through that. So don't give up and keep working on it. And we'll see you next time at Strong as You Think. Bye.